Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to the Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building in the world of Del Sol Valley, which is the world that we got from the expansion pack The Sims 4 Get Famous, and I'm going to be building a big retro style family home. So this house ends up having 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, and it's built on a 40 by 30 lot. Honestly, I could not tell you the last time that I built something in the world of Del Sol Valley. I feel like it has been well overdue. I think it's been literally years since I built here last, but this week I just wanted to build something in a more like retro, kind of like 60s, 70s, 80s kind of style. And I personally feel like the world of Del Sol Valley is probably the best world to build a house of this style in, if you get what I mean. And so, yeah, I built this retro style family home. I'm not gonna lie, this was very much influenced by the fact that last week we got 2 new kits for The Sims 4, and one of them was the Basement Treasures kit. Now, in case you missed it, we got 2 new kits for the game. We got one which was called The Sims 4 Greenhouse Haven kit, and then we got one that was the Basement Treasures kit. The Greenhouse Haven one pretty much just focuses on like gardening clutter. We've got some really nice new windows in the pack. We also got some just like side tables and just bits and pieces basically. But last week I did a build pretty much just focusing and kind of like showcasing all the new items that we got within the kit, and so I thought this week I'd do the same kind of thing, but this time around I would build a retro family home, because from the Basement Treasures kit that is very much the vibe that it gives me. And so yeah, this is how it turned out. I am so happy and so extremely proud of this house, and I'm not gonna lie, I feel like this might be definitely in like my top 5 favourite builds that I think I've ever done. And so yeah, I'm really happy and really excited about it, so I really hope you like it. But getting on and actually talking a little bit more about the build. So like I already mentioned, this house ends up having 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, but as well as that there also ends up being a basement in this house as well. Where I was building this house, and it was pretty much just inspired by the fact that we've got a Basement Treasures kit, I felt like it would just be really wrong if I was to build a house that wasn't going to have a basement. And so yeah, there ends up being a basement in this house as well. Now down there in the basement it ends up being a part storage room, also like a laundry room, you know, like washing machine, tumble dryer, or like the washing bits and bobs basically that we got in the game. But then it also ends up doubling up as kind of like a really cozy music room. Placed down like the standing piano in there, some guitars, loads of different like makeshift furniture, and loads of just storage as well, because I really wanted to make as much use as I could possible from the new Basement Treasures kit. And I definitely got, I think, like the majority of the kit downstairs in the basement. Also end up placing down like old potties that I imagine that this family had once upon a time when their kids were younger, and just, you know, just general basement stuff. But I'm so happy with the way the basement turned out. It just looks so cozy as well. I'm just really happy with it. I decided to make it into part music room, by the way, because I am building this house for my save vault, which I am so excited. Like honestly, I could like I'm oozing with excitement, because the storyline that I've got for the Sims that are going to be living in this house in my save vault, I'm just in love with. I feel like it's a completely different storyline to anything that I've ever done before, and it makes me really excited. And it's the kind of storyline that I've thought of, which just makes me want to ditch my current household and just go and play with a new storyline, just because I just think it's really interesting. But yeah, this house will be my save vault, and so that is part of the reason why there is a music room downstairs in the basement, because I will go in very in depth about the Sims in this storyline, but to kind of give you an insight, the Sims that are going to live here, the whole entire family, they live and breathe music. Like music is their absolute #1 thing that they all love to do in their life. And so that is the reason why I decided to dedicate their basement area into pretty much just a jam out room, so they can all go down there and just, someone can be on the piano, someone can have a little sing song, someone can play the guitar, and then another one can play the violin. It's just, I'm really happy with the storyline and all the different individual Sims as well, and just yeah, I'm excited to share it. But I do currently want to talk about what I'm doing right now. So you can see the main shape of the house, that the structure of the house came together really quickly. I was looking at a picture that I found on Pinterest. I'll find the picture and I'll pop it up on the screen now so you can have a little look. I more so just really liked the fact that this kind of style of retro house has a bit of an overhang on like the upper level, which I never normally do. Like when I normally build a house, I'll never have the up portion kind of like leaning out a little bit. The only other time that I seem to do houses with this kind of shape and structure is like Tudor houses, because I don't know, I feel like a lot of Tudor houses have kind of like a bump out on the upper level. But yeah, I was looking at a picture when I was building this. In terms of like the back garden landscaping and just kind of like the front drive landscaping, I wasn't really looking at anything in particular. I did look at a few different images on Pinterest here and there, but I wasn't trying to like replicate anything. I was just kind of looking at retro, more so like 60s and 70s kind of like back garden spaces, and also a bit of 80s. To be honest, I'm saying all the different decos because I'm not sure which ones they were. They all kind of looked quite similar to me, but I was looking at a few different like back garden images and kind of like the way that they all went. And one thing that I noticed, and one thing that I'm really excited about, is a lot of them seem to have curved pools. And so in this back garden, in this house, it one ends up having quite a big tree house, but two, it ends up having kind of like a curved pool. I'm mainly saying kind of because my intention was I'm building like a retro house. A lot of houses that I was looking at in like back garden images on Pinterest, a lot of them have like curved pools, curved patio areas, and so I really wanted this house to have a curved pool. But the thing is, the way The Sims 4 works and just the way the game functions, unfortunately, we still don't have the ability to have curved pools. I'm saying still don't because I'm holding out that one day we're going to be able to have the ability to have curved pools and curved fountains, because I mean, we never thought that we was going to get curved walls in the game. And then when the high school years expansion pack came out, we then got the update so we can actually have curved walls. So I'm still holding out for curved pools, but I attempted to make a curved pool in the back garden. I'm saying attempted because it's probably... Look, I tried my best. I'm happy with it and I tried my best, but it's probably not as curvy as what it probably could have been. But I mean, I'm happy with it. I spent a very long time doing it. I mean, I'll show you like the start of it and then a little bit of the process of it, and then it kind of like transition to when it's finished, because basically the way I do it, and you will see it on the screen, but I basically draw the pool and then I put a fence around it so I can kind of get an idea for where the pool's actually going to sit. I then got these little slabs that are from the Spa Day game pack, and then I removed the pool but then the fence remained so I could kind of get almost like a blueprint of the shape of the pool. I then went around and basically just ever so slightly curved all these little slabs to try and make it look like it was like a curved pool edge. And I mean, it was my first attempt at doing this. I am no Kate Emerald. If anyone, I feel like everyone knows who Kate Emerald is. Kate Emerald is probably one of the best builders in The Sims 4. She is just... the stuff that she pulls out, honestly, she pulls it out the bag every single time. But she is amazing at doing curved balls. I am no Kate Emerald, but I tried my best, and yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with it. But then as well as that, in the back garden, there ends up being like a barbecue space. There ends up being like some sun loungers. Like I said, there's a tree house. There is just loads of different bits and bobs for your Sims to do. The tree house this time round, I did just use the one that we got from the Growing Together expansion pack, because I'm saying this time round, the last time I built a house at a tree house, I just manually made the tree house. It was when I did that base game house maybe like 2 weeks ago. I wanted to build something that was base game but had a tree house, and so I just made my own. But this time around, I just used the one that we got from the Growing Together expansion pack. I do just whip it out. Here you go. I just whipped it out. But that one, I actually got my Sims to pre-build. Like, I got my Sims to make it just before I started recording, just so I could get kind of like an idea for the shape of it and where the slide was going to be and how I can decorate around it. I feel like that is so much easier when it comes around to building, to actually have the treehouse pre-made, because the treehouse, when you actually pull it out of just like the normal build and buy menu, it is literally just 2 trees and there's a few different planks of wood and a couple of boxes around it, and you don't really know like how big it's going to be, and you know, like the different spaces that you need for the slide and the ladder and the pole and stuff. And so yeah, I did just get my Sim to pre-build it, and so when you download this house of the gallery, if you do want to download it, it will be pre-built, but of course you can definitely just delete it and then replace it with like the original one, and then your Sims can have kind of like a little activity to do one day. But also in this back garden, there ends up being 2 almost like upper porch spaces. So we have this one over here, which is actually the porch which kind of comes in from the garage. So that door, it heads on into one of the bedrooms, because the way that I decorated the bedrooms, by the way, there ends up being a room for a set of parents, a room for an uncle or like grandparents, just someone a little bit older, and there is also a teenager's room and then a kid's room. But the teenager's room, I decided to make it into the garage, and I just thought it'd be a really nice idea if they could have the garage bedroom but then also have kind of like a back door into the garage, which kind of leads out into the garden. And so they have kind of like a little porch space. On their porch I placed down just like a little folding chair, a little guitar, a few different planters. I could just picture the teenager just sitting out there, maybe of an evening, just finished up their homework and maybe like writing a song or doing, I don't know, writing in their journal or something, reading a book, or just, it was just like a nice little added space. And there is also a slightly higher upper porch, which is kind of next to it. I end up using the sofas that we got from the Seasons expansion pack because something about them just seems a little bit retro-y to me, so I used 2 of them. Also placed down like a little table in the middle of them. I placed down a little drinks tray on there so your Sims can make like lemonade or like iced tea or something. And I think there's also a few different planters as well. But you can see that I just finished up the pool area, and hopefully you can see what I mean by when I said it's kind of curved. Like, it's not a full-on curve, but I tried my best, and it's a weird shape and I like it because it's different and I've never really attempted to do anything like this before. So the way that I did it, I pretty much already explained it, but you would have seen I built the pool initially, and then around it I just placed down like a really low fence so I could kind of get the idea for where the pool was going to be. I then deleted the pool and then got these slabs from Spa Day, and then basically just went around and just ever so slightly just alt placed them to try and make it into kind of like a circular motion. The hardest thing about it though is the actual slabs themselves, they're just rectangles, and so you have to use so many and you have to curve so many ever so slightly just so you can get a curve. It's not a curved pool, but it's a weird looking shaped pool, but at least it's not rectangle, and at least it's a little bit of an interesting shape. I placed down the little pizza floaty in the middle of the pool, also placed down a diving board, and then I also sized up some, funny enough, dog toys, or like cat toys. I always picture them to be for dogs though, but I sized up some pet toys and I made them look like beach balls or something, and they're just kind of like floating in the pool area. Now I will say, like always, I have fully playtested this whole entire house. I ran into a few problems here and there, nothing too dramatic, nothing too like groundbreaking or game changing, apart from one thing. And the one thing that I ran into is my Sims couldn't actually get in the pool to start off with. Don't worry, I've sorted it out. They can get in the pool now and they can swim around. But initially, the only way that Sims could enter into the pool, weirdly enough, was if they were to jump off the diving board, which actually felt a little bit backwards to me, because when I placed down that diving board, I was expecting to run into problems with your Sims being able to actually interact with the object and being able to actually use it. And then I thought the pool ladder will be fine, because normally, recently pool ladders have been a little bit glitchy for me. I don't know if anyone else is experiencing this, but normally pool ladders, your Sims can just pop in and pop out. The actual like diving board itself, that's the issues that I normally run into. So when it came around to playtesting, and I clicked on the swimming pool and I just clicked swim here, and my Sim started waving her hands up in the air, and she was like, I can't get in. And so I thought, okay, well, let's see if you can actually use a diving board. I used a diving board and it was fine, but then the issue was my Sim was in the pool, but then she couldn't get out of the pool. I have now since sorted it. Basically, what I ended up doing is, around by the sun loungers, I basically removed 2 little small slabs and just popped in the pool ladder there. Basically, the issue that I was having is where the slabs were kind of going over the pool ladder, Sims just couldn't interact with it because it was kind of like blocking the item. And so I just removed 2 slabs in kind of like an area which I feel like it's the least least noticeable, because I placed it on kind of like the straighter area of the pool rather than on the curved edges. And then that way it was usable. And so if you do want to download this house off the gallery, don't worry, everything works. I triple checked everything after that. I do this anyway, but I literally got my Sim to sit on every single seat, test every single counter, every single sink, mirror, etc, etc. It all works. So if you do want to download it, you shouldn't run into any problems. But getting back to actually talking about what I'm doing right now, so you can see that I'm just finishing at the back garden. This is the little upper porch area that I was talking about. I don't know what it is, but I feel like these sofas from Seasons are quite retro-y, and I tried to make all of the furnishings on the inside be very similar to that. I was going to say retro-y again, but I just said the word, so very similar to that. I just basically wanted it from the outside to also reflect on the inside. So there is a lot of like older school retro furniture. I use a lot of Get Famous in this build, a lot of like Bowling Night, lots of them kind of packs that have more like retro style. And yeah, I thought them Season sofas were just kind of like the perfect outdoor sofa space. But currently you can see that I've just come back to the front garden. I just went around and placed down some individual like grass clumps just to kind of like fill out the space around the pathway, because I had such a big pathway and such a big drive, but then there was also just such a large amount of grass, and I wanted to kind of make it look a little bit more interesting. I normally do that around the mailbox, so I normally do that kind of thing around like fence posts or something, but then I decided to do it around the pathway. And then something that I did on the front drive, which I was really happy with this idea. Where I was building a retro family home, I really wanted it to feel like if your Sims live here, they live in a different decade. Like they're stuck in like the 60s or 70s or something. And so I was thinking about all the different things that you would have encountered in that kind of time. I'm saying encountered in that kind of time. You still very much experience it now, but I don't know if you would have noticed, but I basically sized up a blueprint that your Sims will have in the game, and I tried to make it look like someone's just chucked a newspaper at this driveway. And before anyone tries to come for me and try and tell me that newspapers are very much still a common day thing, I know, believe me, I my first ever job, I was a paper girl at like 13 years old. I was a paper girl. Like, I know that newspapers are still very much a thing that people have in this day and age, but we don't have them in the game, which is really unfortunate because we had them in The Sims 3. Honestly, can't remember if we had them in The Sims 2 or not, but I know that in The Sims 3, we used to have a paper kid who used to ride around on their little bike around the neighbourhood, and they used to just chuck newspapers every single day at your Sims door. And after a while, if your Sims in The Sims 3 didn't collect the newspapers, the paper kid would just give up, and they'd be like, you've got too many now, like you have to clean them up or just like cancel your service or something. I really miss that in The Sims 3. I really hope we could get that kind of thing back for the Sims 4. I wouldn't even know what kind of pack that would come in, because I feel like the one pack that would be kind of like perfectly suited for would have been the Growing Together EP, but obviously we got that expansion pack now, and unfortunately kids still don't have like a paper round to do, but I really wish that we could get that back. But yeah, either way, I sized up a blueprint and I was thinking that it could be a newspaper, and the local paper kid has just rode their bike around this little circle in this neighbourhood, and they've just chucked it onto the drive, and it's just landed kind of like in front of one of the cars next to one of the bikes. I thought that was such a nice idea. Originally, I placed down the blueprint in kind of like a green swatch, because the blueprint that I'm using, I think we now have 2 different blueprint debug items in the game, because the blueprint itself is from the debug menu, and it's just something that your Sims will interact with in gameplay. So we have one which is from Eco Lifestyle, and it's when your Sims are an inventor and they're trying to invent something, they'll have like little blueprints for it. And then we also have one version of it from the Growing Together expansion pack, and I think it's a similar thing but just with the treehouse. So when your Sims want to build a treehouse, a parent will kind of like pull out the blueprints and then, you know, look at it, make it look like they've planned it or something. But yeah, the actual blueprints themselves, they're from the debug menu, but the one from Eco Lifestyle has 2 different colour swatches. There is a green version and a blue version. Originally, I placed it down in the green version, but then I had a double look at it, and at kind of like a glimpse, it did look like a little bit of grass just plopped onto the driveway, and so I do decide to change that. You don't see me do it on camera, but you'll see it in the screenshots. I decided to change the blueprint to be blue rather than green, just so then when you're like, say if your Sims are just walking down the street and they wish to glance at the house, it doesn't look like they've just got a random lump of grass on their driveway. But then as well as that, by the front door area, I placed down a ton of different letters and a few different parcels, and one of them I rotated it to make it look like a delivery driver has tried to deliver a package, maybe the family weren't in, and so they put it in like a safe space, and they've just basically plopped it behind a little base game plant. So what I did is I just found this debug package from the debug menu, it's from base game, and I basically used a tool mod and I rotated it to be at a slight angle and then kind of like hid it behind the plant pot. I mean, you can see it and you know it's there, but I just thought it was like a nice little added thing. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into the inside of the house, and I started off by doing kind of like the entrance hallway as well as kind of like the lounge space. So to start off, by the front door, which by the way, I didn't mention it, but if you are curious, that front door is brand new. We got it, I say brand new, it's brand new to me, I haven't used it yet, but it's from the Growing Together expansion pack. I have wanted to use it, and this was basically the most perfect build to use it in. Originally, when I was doing the exterior like wallpapering, I was deciding between rather using like a green paneling or a cream paneling, which is really difficult to say, but I decided to opt for the cream paneling, and so I thought I'd bring in the green in the front door. And so yeah, if you're wondering where the door is from, it is from the Growing Together EP. But by the front door area, you kind of walk in and you're on a slightly lower level, which I feel like is so stereotypical for like old retro style houses. So on that little kind of like dip in the floor, we end up having like a coat rack, we have like an umbrella stand, I placed down like a backpack and then a few different shoes and a shoe rack, and then you kind of walk up. But then I did this thing with a half wall, which I've done before, but honestly I haven't done it in a really long time, maybe like even a few different years. But basically I really like this trick where if you want to use a half wall, to use dividers and kind of like merge it in to make it look like it's meant to be a bit of a fancy wall. So basically the dividers that I've used, they're from the Get Famous expansion pack, I believe, but basically I just merged them in to the half wall and just kind of like leveled them up using the 9 key, and then I got a column which is from, I think, Get Together, and basically just made it look like it was a bit of an open-ish kind of wall. I just really like it, and the thing is as well, on the inside, like in the lounge space behind that wall, I wanted there to be a sofa, but I didn't want the wall to be completely open, but then I didn't also want to close it off, if you get what I mean. And so it was kind of like a nice middle ground because it's still closed off, but it's a divider, and so it's not completely closed off, if that makes any sense. But in the lounge room, I decided to use the sofas, which are from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack. I was going to use one that we got from, I think it was high school years, but it looked really uncomfortable. You would have seen me kind of like flickering through the swatches. They had some really perfect swatches for it, but the thing is, the actual sofa itself, it just looks like it looks like it would just be so hard if you was to sit on it so long. And so I decided to use the ones that were from Cats and Dogs. Also ended up placing down a fireplace in that room. I tried to make it almost parallel to the chimney on the exterior, and there is also a little TV area in the house as well. I placed down the new TV that we got from the Basement Treasures kit, and I placed it down onto kind of like a base game looking kind of like a trunk, if you want to put it that way. But then I placed it on a bit of a diagonal, and you'll notice this in both the kitchen, the lounge room, and then a few different spaces in this house. I don't know what it was. I just had an obsession with placing clocks in this house. I don't know what it is, but in my head, clocks, sounds bizarre, but clocks seem very retro in my head apparently, according to this build, because you'll see that I placed down multiple different clocks, but I feel like it works. But I placed down some of them above the little TV area. Also placed down a bookcase in that room as well. Now, the one thing I will say is a bookcase that I placed down, your Sims can't actually access it because I placed down the Parenthood kind of like toy bin. It's purely for decoration. I placed that down in front of the bookcase just to make it feel like a little bit more of a lived-in space. But because the item is just in front of the bookcase, your Sims can't actually gain access to it. So if your Sims want to go and pop a book out from it, they'll actually just redirect to the nearest bookcase, which, don't worry, there is multiple bookcases in this house. But then also in the lounge space, I placed down a little coffee table, and then I don't know if you noticed, but I placed down almost like an ironing basket, washing basket onto the coffee table. Now, one of the things that I did in this house, which you will see and hopefully you'll notice, but I tried to make this house feel as lived in and as realistic as I could possible. Like, I really wanted this to feel like a proper lived in family home. I wanted there to be so many different like smaller touches that makes it just feel like people actually live here. Like, this is someone's actual house, and like they go around their day-to-day life and they do all these different bits and pieces. It might not be the most immaculate space, but it's realistic, it's lived in. And so one of the things that I did into the lounge room is I placed down the washing basket, because there is a door which goes into the basement, kind of just off the lounge room. Like, to get into the basement, your Sims kind of have to walk through the lounge. I placed down a washing basket because I was thinking one of the parents were just about to put a load of washing on, but maybe they got distracted by something, maybe someone knocked on their front door or whatever, and they just popped down the little washing basket onto the coffee table just before they were about to head downstairs. It's a small thing, but I really tried to like focus in on the smaller details in this house. Another thing that I did as well actually is on the staircase, you might have noticed, I placed down kind of like a little basket. We got it from the Dream Home Decorator game pack. I've done this before in previous builds, but I basically moved objects to this basket to make it look like it's been sitting on the stair, and it's basically the next person that is due to go upstairs, they have to take that basket with them. If you're wondering, your Sims, they don't even know it's there. Like, your Sims can still walk up and down the stairs. They honestly don't even batter an eyelid. But yeah, I just thought it was like a nice little touch. But then you would quickly just see me do the kitchen. So for the kitchen, I decided to use my absolute favourite traditional base game counters. If you watch me at all, or if you watch me regularly, you probably know my love for these counters because I use them all the time, but they're just my absolute favourite. And in my defence, they are quite retro looking-y. So I decided to use them in the kitchen. But in the kitchen itself, it ends up having a part little like small dining room area, as well as kind of like a little breakfast bar. So it's quite a big space, and there is 2 free counters, because when I was building this house, I was really thinking about all the different rooms that the Sims would use and how they would use them. And for the storyline, which By the way, I definitely have not forgotten about this storyline. I'm going to talk about the storyline when I actually move on and I start decorating the bedrooms, because the bedroom spaces, it took up so much time because I really went as in detail as I could possible. And so I will speak about the Sims and their personalities when I actually move on into their rooms. But for the kitchen, I did imagine it to be kind of like a hot spot for the household to spend a lot of their time in, as well as the basement. But the kitchen, I imagine that 2 household members in particular, really big on cooking, and so they often cook together. So that's why I wanted there to be at least 2 free counters. I think there might even potentially be 3 empty counter spaces, because now Sims can actually cook like kids and other household members. I wanted there to be enough space so multiple members of the family could cook at one time. But I ended up placing down like a microwave in there, a coffee pot, and also a small little dining room table, as well as a breakfast bar. And the idea that I had for the kitchen space is that 2 household members are consistently in the kitchen, you know, they're consistently whipping stuff up, cooking together, baking together, whilst the rest of the household maybe like sit on the smaller dining room table, and maybe they've got the radio on or something. Also place down a radio station into that room, as well as kind of like a mid-century older looking, almost like china cabinet, and then I merged in some like trophies onto it, and then like puzzle games and just loads of different bits and bobs. But then quickly you would have just seen me do the dining room space. Tell you what, I feel like the floor plan for this house is really easy, because the way that you get into the kitchen to then get into the dining room to then get back into like the lounge space, your Sims basically can walk around like a circle. I feel like for gameplay it is really easy. But in the dining room I used a new table and chair. I say new, they're just new to me because I haven't used them yet, but they're from the Grow and Tier expansion pack. It is the table and chairs, and then I placed down like a plant onto the table, a little salt and pepper shaker, also placed down like another side table, a few different like pictures in the wall, the odd spare chair in the corner for like maybe if someone's having like guests round or something for dinner, there's like spare chairs if anyone needs it. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into the first bedroom in the house, which is the teenager's bedroom. So I know I have briefly touched on the storyline of this household, but I was kind of like more so waiting for the bedroom situation, because all of the bedrooms I tried to make as detailed as possible, and to be honest, this bedroom probably ends up being the most detailed one out of all of them. And so I thought it would be the perfect time to kind of tell you the storyline for the Sims that could be living in this house. So I have kind of like briefly mentioned the different household members, but to rephrase, this household is going to consist of 5 Sims. There is going to be a mum, a dad, an uncle, a teenage boy, and then a little girl. So the way that the idea and kind of like the storyline formed in my head, I'm also focused on the dad and then the uncle and then the daughter and then the mum and then the teenager. It kind of like came in that formation in my head because I had the idea and kind of like the bulks, like core of the storyline, and then it just kind of like extended and then it all kind of gels together. So starting off with the storyline for the dad. Now I was personally imagining that the dad and the uncle have always grown up around music. I imagine that their parents were really into music, and maybe even like their parents' parents, and so in their like early 20s, the dad and the uncle used to be in a band together. Now, of course, unfortunately, in The Sims 4 we do not have bands, but I was personally imagining that the dad of the household would more so be a singer, whilst the uncle would be a saxophone player, which, unfortunately, we don't actually have saxophones in the game at the minute. I'm saying at the minute because I'm still holding out for more musical instruments, but I was more so thinking this band was like a jazz band or something, and so I was thinking that these 2 brothers were in a band in their early 20s, and then years later, the band has broken up. I'm only saying that they're broken up because where we don't have bands in the game, I can't actually bring this storyline to like fruition in my actual save file, because where we don't have bands, it just would make no sense. And so for the storyline purpose, the band broke up years back. But I mean, if we had bands in The Sims 4, they would very much still be in a band. But I think nowadays, the dad is still a musician and he still does a few gigs here and there, but his 9-to-5 job, he just maybe works a few gigs, maybe will be like you know when people like sing for other people on like TV shows or in films or something, they kind of like do the voice for them when like the actress or the actor can't actually do it. Maybe they do something like that, but they're not a big shot musician. They're just like a lower end of the line kind of musician, just trying to make ends meet. And then I was thinking that the uncle nowadays is just a comedian. I think that he's like a really funny sim. He always makes everyone laugh. And I was thinking that previously, he didn't always live in this house, but maybe a few years back, him and his ex-wife got a divorce, and so he moved in with his brother, because they've always been close, but he moved in with his brother, and then since then, he's just become like a bit of the furniture. Like, it'd be a bit weird now if he was to move out, because he was probably one of them people that was saying, I'll only be here for X amount of time, and then that time turned into weeks, into months, and then years later he's still here. But I was thinking that the uncle and the mum of the household are really good cooks, and so that's why in the kitchen I wanted there to be at least 2 counter spaces so they could always cook together. Like, I could just picture maybe like any weekday evening you could walk into this household and you could find the majority of the family members, if they're not downstairs in the basement, in the kitchen. You got the uncle and then you got the mum cooking together, you got the radio on, they're just all having a little bit of a sing-song. I imagine like the teenager and then the kid are maybe around the table doing their homework or something, and then maybe the dad's trying to like match the melody of what's going on in the room or something. I don't know, I just really liked the idea of this family just really being into singing, and I really liked the idea of the uncle being quite close with his sister-in-law, but then more so focusing on the mum of the household. So the idea that I had for the mum, I actually started off with how she met her husband. So I was thinking that she used to be a cheerleader, and you'll notice when we actually move on into the basement, I placed down some like pom-poms and some like cheer-related equipment to try and make it seem like that was her stuff when she was a teenager and when she met her husband, that she hasn't let go of yet. She's still just storing it in the basement, but it's just kind of like tucked away in the corner. But yeah, I imagine she was a cheerleader, and then the dad was in some sort of school band. Now, I don't know what the official name of it is because we don't really have anything like it in the UK, and the only reference that I can give you as kind of like an example, you know Taylor Swift? You know her You Belong With Me music video when she's in a band, she's in like the full like uniform outfit, she plays like a drum or something. I was thinking that was the dad when he was in high school, and then the mum used to be a cheerleader, and then because they always used to go to games together, they met each other, and you know, they were high school sweethearts, and years later they're just still together. But yeah, I imagine that the mum herself wasn't probably from a musical background, but she's really developed a love and a passion for music ever since she's been with her partner, and so she doesn't like play any musical instruments. I was just more so thinking that she is a really good singer, and the idea that I had originally was, okay, well maybe when they first started out and when they first maybe got their first apartment in like San Moschino, maybe both of them were trying to really go for it and try and be big shot musicians, but maybe after they had their first kid they couldn't really afford it because maybe they weren't getting booked that much, and maybe they just didn't have that much money. And so nowadays the mum works in a restaurant quite high up as a head chef, and that's kind of like where her love for cooking comes in. Now, where I was thinking that the uncle and then the mum were really close in terms of like they always cook together and stuff, I was personally thinking of the scenario of maybe they always have like singing competitions when they're in the kitchen. So maybe it's someone will doing something over in the counter, maybe like mixing a bowl, someone's chopping something in the other counter. I was just picturing that they would always like tease each other, and they would always have like little miniature competitions, because I was thinking as well, by the way, this uncle has got such a big personality. Maybe that's probably one of the reasons why him and his ex-wife broke up, because maybe he's just like a little bit of a class clown, and so he's consistently joking, but then I feel like he's probably the kind of sim that wouldn't know when to stop, like he doesn't know when the joke is kind of up kind of situation. But yeah, I was thinking that the mum and the uncle, they're almost like the best of friends. But moving on and speaking about the storyline for both the teenager and the kid of the household, but focusing more so on the teenager because this is the teenager's room that I'm currently doing. So you can see that this room ends up being so cluttered. There is just so much stuff just everywhere, and I had so much fun decorating this bedroom. In total, this one room took me 48 minutes. That was how long the recorded footage for just that one room took me, but it was 100% worth it. I just went to absolute town with the debug menu and the live edit menu, and just I tried to clutter it up to basically my heart's content, and just I had the time of my life doing it. But in that room, there ends up being a bed kind of like pushed alongside the wall, that ends up being like a garage mural, a little like gaming area. In terms of like the teenager's personality, of course this teenager is very much going to be into music, but I was thinking that they're going to be more so a guitar player rather than like a singer or someone that plays the piano, just because I really wanted to use, you know, the Mosquito, I don't like the amplifier. We got it from the Moschino Stuff pack. It's not called Mosquito, but you know the one I'm talking about. We got it from the Moschino Stuff pack. It's just a purely decorational object, but I wanted to use it in this house somewhere, and so I thought it'd be quite fitting if the teenager could be into guitar rather than singing. And so I placed that down into their room, also placed down an electric guitar. They also have like a tiny little PC area where I was building this house to be a little bit like old school, kind of like retro-y. There is no like high technology in this house. I made a conscious effort not to try and include like modern day looking objects and furniture pieces. So the only one computer in the whole entire house ends up being in their bedroom, but it's one of like the older fashioned, really like boxy computers. But I feel like if anyone wants to use the PC, they've got to go into their room, because I don't personally imagine this household to be the type of Sims that will just have a laptop in their pockets. But as well as liking guitar, the teenager I was personally imagining would really like skateboarding, which again, we don't actually have in The Sims 4, but the thing is, sometimes when you're thinking of a storyline, you sometimes think of like different parts and different qualities that you really want to include in the storyline, but then you don't actually, like, we can't make that actually happen because we might not have the certain thing in the game. But I was picturing that the teenager would really be into like skateboarding, often go to like the skate park with their friends and stuff, but unfortunately we don't have skateboards in the game. So my middle ground was, okay, well maybe they're really into riding bikes, and so I was thinking that one of the bikes that are like outside on the front drive, maybe one of them is theirs, and then maybe the other one is just like their little sisters or something. But I was thinking that this teenager is really sociable. He probably has like quite a large group of friends, and I imagine he's kind of like the teenager that, you know, like MTV Cribs, if anyone used to watch MTV Cribs, and you always used to watch the people go around their house and they used to just have like 1,000,001 friends just like dotted about in every single room. I imagine that this teenager, he's not like the most flashiest teenager, like they haven't got the flashiest house by any means, but more so like the social aspect. I imagine that he's consistently having friends over. I imagine that his friends are just really good Sims, and you know, they get on with the parents as well. I imagine the parents just to be really just nice Sims. I imagine that everyone gets on with these kind of Sims, and if you don't get along with these Sims, then it just might be a bit of a you problem, because everyone seems to get along with them. But yeah, I was imagining that this teenager had quite a good amount of friends, and they often enjoy like music together. Maybe they always like chill downstairs in their basement with their family. That was just kind of like the general idea that I had for the teenager. And then the last Sim in the household is the little girl. Now, one idea that I had, which I absolutely love, I was thinking of the scenario of what about if the dad and the daughter really wanted to become kind of a bit of a dad-daughter duo, in terms of they wanted to make music together and they often sing together. I absolutely love this idea, because I've never done a storyline like this, because normally with kids in my save file, I just really struggle to find kind of like a little bit more of an in-depth storyline to give them, because it's lovely having kids that can be in scouts, and it's lovely having kids that can be really into, I don't know, like space or something. And it is, and I do really enjoy that, but then I also feel like I get a little bit repetitive sometimes with a storyline for kids, because I feel like sometimes they're a little bit hard to make storylines for. So I really love the idea of the dad and the daughter maybe being like the best of friends. Maybe the mum and the uncle, they're the best of mates, and then the dad and the daughter, they're the best of mates, and then the son, he hasn't got to worry because he's got tons of mates. So maybe that's like kind of like the general kind of like scenario for the household. I mean, everyone gets on. I imagine this whole entire family are just such a tight-knit kind of family that they all love each other equally. But, you know, I love the idea of the dad and the daughter being like best mates, and they always go around and like sing together. And maybe sometimes at like the weekend, when she's allowed to, she can go to the different venues that her dad might be performing at, and she can like have a little sing song with him. I just thought that was the sweetest storyline, and I just think it's really heartwarming, and it makes my heart just really nice and warm. But yeah, that was pretty much the idea that I have for this family that's going to be living in this house, my save file. I am just so in love with this storyline, because it is just so completely different to anything that I've ever done before. And like I said, just even talking about the storyline even more, because the past few days I've been thinking about this storyline in my head, but I haven't actually said it out loud. And now that I've said it out loud, it's kind of just giving me the urge to actually go and create them and go and play with this family like literally right now. But yeah, I'm really happy with the storyline, and I really hope you like it as well. But yeah, that was kind of like the overview for the Sims that are going to be living in this house, my save. But getting back to talking about what I'm doing right now, and what is also on the screen. So you can see that I finished off the teenager's bedroom, and now I moved downstairs into the basement. Now, I can't actually remember the amount of footage that I had for the basement, but I remember it was around about a similar amount of footage in terms of time that I had for the teenager's bedroom, because I really wanted both the teenager's bedroom and the basement to be a little bit more grimy, like a little bit, not dirty, but a little bit more like rough around the edges. So in both the teenager's bedroom and then this room as well, I tried to use the wallpaper that we got from the Basement Treasures kit. I don't know if you can tell with my reshade, or it just might be the lighting in this room, but this particular wallpaper, it looks like it's got a little bit of wear and tear over time. Like the middle of it just looks a little bit, oh, what's it called, like weathered, a little bit dated. It looks a little bit off colour, like it basically, it needs a fresh lick of paint, basically, this room, and then also the teenager's bedroom. But I also went around and placed down loads of different cracks, loads of different like leaks and just stuff on the floor. I also used carpet as well in this build, which honestly, revolutionary for me, because I never seem to use carpet in any of my Sims builds, which is really funny because whenever I play The Sims 3, I never have wooden floors. Whenever I play The Sims 4, I never have carpet. I don't know what it is, but I'm just not a massive fan of the way that the carpet looks in the game, and so normally I try and opt for all wooden floors, but in all of the bedrooms in this house, as well as in the basement, and then also in the lounge room, I opted for carpet, because where I was trying to build something more retro-y, I feel like everyone just had carpet back in the day, and so yeah, there is carpet in the basement, but I tried to use one that is kind of a little bit more like dirty. It looks like it's got scuffs on. It just looks like loads of people have been in there, they've got their shoes on, they've got mud all over the floor and just kind of made it into a bit of a tip. But in the basement, as you would have seen, I used the new sofa that we got from the basement treasures kit. I also used it in combination with the sofa that we got from the Werewolves game pack, which the Werewolves game pack really came in handy when I was doing this build, because there's a lot of like worn down, kind of like older looking furniture that came from that game pack, and yeah, it just worked really nicely in this build. I also use the standing piano that we got from the Growing Together expansion pack, which I've been wanting to use that piano in that certain colour swatch literally since we got the expansion pack. If you didn't catch it, basically the piano that I used, the colour swatch, it's kind of like a darker brown, but it's got all these stickers over it. I was thinking that maybe either the teenager just went to town with like a sticker book or something, or maybe the kid actually went to town with a sticker book and just stuck all these different stickers on it, and maybe the family actually kind of liked it and they kept it. Or maybe it was like previous band stickers that the dad and the uncle in, you know, like their old band, and maybe it was their band stickers or something. But yeah, I used the Growing Together standing piano in the swatch that I've been wanting to use, but I just haven't done a build that I felt like it was appropriate for, but I placed that down into there. Also used a ton of different stuff from the basement kit. So I placed down the woohoo bed, which is just a purely decorational object, but if you would have noticed it, behind the werewolf sofa that I placed down this bed, and it's kind of like a mattress, and then it's kind of got like a love heart, kind of like headboard, very iconic to The Sims, and I'm really surprised at this point that we still haven't got that in the actual game itself, but I placed that down into there. Also placed down like trolleys and old trunks. I also placed down like actual, like just junk, like actual rubbish. So I placed down like pizza boxes and like cans and stuff. I was thinking maybe the teenager was down there with their mates, maybe like the night before or something, and they just haven't cleaned up after themselves. There also ends up being a little laundry space off the basement. So in the laundry space we have a washing machine and a tumble dryer. I did realise when I came around and I started editing this video that there is no hanging line in the back garden, which I feel like would probably be quite realistic in a house from the kind of like time period that I was trying to build it in, but of course you can just add that in. But then as well as that, there ends up being like a ton of different like pipes in the walls. I also placed down the vacuum in there as well, just tons of different stuff. Oh, and I also added in a mouse hole, so in gameplay there should be a little mouse running around, and then in front of the mouse hole I placed down like a cheese trap to make it look like Sims have been trying to get rid of this mouse. Maybe the mouse is a very unwanted guest and the Sims are just trying to get rid of the mouse, but for the minute they've just shoved a little bit of like cork and then a bit of cheese on the cork in hopes to kind of like catch the mouse or something. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on up to the upstairs level of this build, and I started off by doing one of the bathrooms. So like I've already mentioned, this house does end up having 3 bathrooms. There is one downstairs and then there is 2 upstairs. The one that you saw me do was kind of like more of the green bathroom, even though I didn't stick to a colour swatch in terms of like the wallpaper and stuff, but in terms of like the shower and bath combo, in the bathroom that you saw me do, I tried to stick to a bit of a green theme, and so I used the new Growing Together shower and bath combo in the green swatch, but then in the other upstairs bathroom I tried to use the same items but in a different colour swatch and tried to make that one a little bit more of like a orangey brown kind of look. I just like the idea of having like a little bit of a mix-match kind of bathroom situation. But there is also a bathroom downstairs. The bathroom downstairs is kind of like the bathroom that I imagine that the teenager would use. So in there is just a shower, a bath combo thing, so it's the same one, and then a toilet and then the sink. But now, as you can see, I'm just going around and just finishing up the kids' room. Now, this kids' room was so much fun to decorate because I tried to really make it feel like a bedroom that you would find in like the 80s or something. I use this bed, which is from the High School Years expansion pack, but I used it in this swatch, which I don't think I've used before. It just fitted absolutely perfectly though with the room, and then there ends up being like a little drawing table in there, also like a teddy bear, a doll's house. I use one of the get together wardrobes, which I wanted to add a get-together wardrobe or some sort of like built-in wardrobe function into every single room, because I don't know what it is, but in my mind, like back in the day, everyone used to have like built-in wardrobes. I don't know if that was an actual thing, but it's just how I imagine it in my mind. And so I wanted to try and have every single bedroom to have something like that. You would have seen in the teenager's bedroom, I tried to do this thing where I basically got two wardrobes and I twisted one backwards so you couldn't see the clothes in it, and I basically merged in a kitchen counter for the handles, and then I merged on a mirror to make it look like that was built in. And then in the kids' room there is an actual built-in one. In this room, which I've now moved on to, which is the uncle's room, that ends up being one. The only thing is I just couldn't make it fit into the parents' bedroom, but I mean they still have a chest of drawers, and they also end up having like a makeup vanity station as well. So I mean there is still plenty of space if like the kid wants to play in the closet or something. But yeah, I placed down at the get together wardrobe in the kids' room and I merged in a poster. If you're wondering, it still works, it's 100% usable. When I was doing it, I'm not going to lie, I couldn't remember off memory what side a sim will go into the door. So what I did is I went onto YouTube and I basically rewatched the Get Together reveal trailer. You know, like when we get an expansion pack, like the official trailer. I went and I rewatched that trailer and I waited for when a sim would go into the walk-in wardrobe, because when we got the walk-in wardrobes, it was such a amazing thing. And to be honest, it still is. We've only really got these wardrobes from the Get Together expansion pack, but I went and rewatched the Get Together trailer and I made sure that I was placing down that poster onto the correct side, and in gameplay when your sim wants to actually go into the closet, they'll go onto the right hand side and the poster kind of just stays still. Also, complete side subject, but I'm really sorry, but there is a bird outside my window who is chirping obnoxiously now, so I'm really sorry if you can automatically just now hear like a little chirps happening. I can't prevent it, it's a bird, bless them, they're just doing what they're doing. But if you can hear that, like a very loud tweet, that's what it is. But anyway, getting back to the build, so you can see that I just finished up the uncle's room. So in there I placed down the bed that we got from the Growing Together expansion pack. Honestly, trying to remember the names of all the different expansion packs when we've got Get Together, Growing Together, Get Famous, it's so confusing. But I used the bed from the Growing Together expansion pack, and then in there I also used one of the Growing Together wardrobes. Ends up being like an older looking armchair in that room as well, with like a little guitar next to it. Also end up placing down a little tiny bookcase. The one that I use is from, I believe, the Discover University expansion pack. The uncle's room also does end up having one of the bathrooms kind of like attached to it. So the way that the floor plan worked out for the house, there was going to be one room that was going to have an ensuite, and initially I was going to make it into the parents' room because I just feel like that would make more sense. But then the parents' room, like this room which I've now moved on to, actually ends up being way bigger. And so I thought, you know what, the uncle, maybe, I don't know how they've managed to plug their way into having the room that's actually got the ensuite, but the uncle's room, it does end up having an ensuite. But now, as you can see, and as I kind of just briefly mentioned, I have now moved on into the last room in the house. I'm still going to do the hallway, but this is the last bedroom and it's going to be for the parents. So in here I decided to use this bed, which is from the Sims 4 base game, and I honestly don't think I've ever used this bed before in the past. Without being, it's just not my favourite, if I'm being honest with you. I'm just not a massive fan of the way this bed looks, and so I don't think I've ever used it in a build, but it was just so perfect for this house, and so I had to use it. It's basically like this more older looking wooden 4-poster bed. It's got quite a interesting bed swatch. I'm not the biggest fan of the bed swatch, but it kind of works for this house, and that's why it was so perfect for this room. But originally, coming into this bedroom, I wanted to do a little bit of like mismatched furniture. So originally I was going to have 2 different bedside tables, and I was thinking that maybe one was maybe picked up somewhere in like a thrift shop or something, and then one of them is like a little bit of a newer like furniture piece. But then I then thought we might annoy some people, because I know it annoys some people when you have like mismatching chairs around a table. And so I thought, do you know what, I'm just going to use these ones that are from, I think they're from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, and this way they are matching. But I just went around and I cluttered up all the bedside tables with like little baskets and lotions. I also found this debug engagement ring in the debug menu. You can see that I'm just pulling out here. It is so small, honestly, you can barely even see it. But I really liked the idea of the mum maybe taking off all of her jewellery when she has like a shower or something. Maybe when she puts her moisturiser on or when she does her skincare, she takes all of her jewellery off. When I came round to editing this video though, I did come to the realisation that it probably looks like the mum takes off her engagement ring to maybe go and do something that maybe she shouldn't be doing, if you get my drift. I do want to clear it up, I don't think that's the case whatsoever. It was a fun debug item that I found in the menu and I just really wanted to use it. So yeah, I'm just going to go with the idea that she does a lot of skincare and stuff, and so whenever she does all of her skincare bits and bobs, she just takes off all of her jewellery, all of her like necklaces and bracelets and stuff, and she just pops it onto her little chest of drawers area. I feel like she's a very loyal sim. She's probably going to be a sim that would potentially have the loyal trait, which is a fairly new trait that we've got in the game now. But anyway, besides the point, as you can see, I'm just going to go around, finish off this room, add in like a little mirror, and then I'm going to finish off the build by doing the hallway space. But apart from that, that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or you can search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content, then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys!